Hello and welcome to the third and final mini tasting for the April of 2020 Outturn. And we have here tonight a really interesting comparison between two whiskies that have been quite heavily wood influenced, certainly by comparison to the earlier ones, but from very different distilleries with quite different distillation practices. So we have here a 94.5, the 0.5 in the SMWS parlance, meaning that this is only the fifth cask bought from this particular distillery. And then we have a 10.169, whose name I shan't attempt to pronounce, but which comes from a distillery which was purchased very, very early on, not the distillery itself, but the cask, and which the Society has purchased many, many casks from over the years. So one that you may well know and one that you perhaps won't. The interesting point of comparison between these two is that both distilleries attempt to produce a lighter style of spirit, but do so in very different ways. So let's have a wee look here at the Vineyard Mudguard. And this one here has been finished in a French oak barrique, which has been shaved, toasted and recharred. So this is a process which is gaining favour nowadays because it reinvigorates the cask in a really extraordinary way. It gives you a lot of big wood flavours. But to give you a little bit about the distillery itself, they operate very small stills, which would traditionally produce quite a heavy spirit, and this is a pretty common thing in the Highlands. However, they intended to produce, as I said, a lighter spirit, and so there were various methods they adopted in order to achieve that. But the most interesting is that they have a small ring at the very top of the neck of the still, which pours cold water down the outside of the neck of the still, which increases reflux. So similar to having a tall still or having a boil ball, the intention is the same, to make sure that those lighter spirits are the ones which are favoured. So ends up producing a much lighter spirit than you would tend to expect from a distillery with this kind of equipment. And this is a distillery that we really don't see enough of. It often has a nutty characteristic, and it's quite particular. So we'll see what we make of this one. And on the nose, this is really interesting already. So quite raisiny, quite rich. You can see really, really good colour, or maybe you can't. This is quite an interesting drop. So initially it was matured in American oak, and then finished in these shaved, toasted, recharred cask. Almost puts me in mind of a caramel slice my mum used to make with raisins in it. So we taste. So this is at 56% alcohol. So the nose really confirmed on the palate, but with a chocolatey, spicy finish as well. Oh, and something quite warm, herbal, very rich, very warming. That's fascinating. Quite unlike examples I've had before from this distillery. Leaves you with a really nice warming brandyish almost character. So we taste. Very nice balance in the wood influence, but that spicy, peppery, rich finish coming through. So very much a strongly wood influenced whiskey. A bit of water. Long finish as well. Let's move on here. So here we have a distillery that many of you probably know. Let me look at the bottle. So that was a special bottling for Shield 2019. It's taken its time getting to us, but really lucky to have it. And this one, again, as I said, the spirit itself tends to be quite light, whereas the distillery style tends to be thought of as being a bit heavier, although not peated at all, typically because they use sherry casks at the distillery, especially in the past. And this one is finished in a sherry cask, and you can see it's got a rather nice colour as a result. But it is a finish as opposed to a full maturation, so you do hopefully get a bit of the lightness that the distillery is capable of. So they have, as I said, a very different approach to producing that lighter Highland style spirit, and that's to have very, very large stills that they fill quite low, and again that produces a lightness of spirit without needing to go to the ends that they do at the first distillery here. And this is really interesting on the nose. Very savoury. So a lot of people think when I say sherry, ex-sherry casks, of sweetness, of the grandma's pale cream sherry, and this has got almost none of that. It's quite malty. It's almost got a bit of Vegemite or Marmite, whatever your persuasion is. It's definitely something salty there. It's like yeasty. It's a really interesting nose. Let's have a wee taste. Sweetness really coming through more on the palate than on the nose, and the richness from the sherry cask coming through. Nice nuttiness as well. Again, a really nice long finish. Very oily. In fact, both quite oily whiskies. How we taste. Saltiness, spiciness. Again, by comparison, hasn't got that sweet, raisiny, caramelly note that this one does at all, but much more on the savoury, salty side of things. Really interesting comparison as well. Well, that's the third and final of these wee tastings. I do hope you've enjoyed them and they've given you some idea of what to expect in lieu of the tastings we usually do. Well, that's me signing out. Enjoy your isolation.